How many species do you think exists on our biosphere? Just guess the number. Few thousands? Few millions? And how much do we know about it? We know only 1%, or estimated 1 trillion species. I reckon that number is much greater than a trillion, looking at the amount we know about it. It's amazing how much we do not know about life. Being the most powerful computer out there, Homo sapiens can compute 1 billion operations per second. Seven. No? Audio is not working. Better now? Working? Seis traduzido, 7 em inglês. Isso? Deu? Homo sapiens, able to process 1 billion operations per second in the middle of the 4th Industrial Revolution, couldn't stop mass extinction. Our generation, sadly, are experiencing, for the first time in history of the planet Earth, one species was able to create mass extinction. That's pretty sad. And the reason that this is happening is because we value biodiversity like this. We love our timber floors. We love to remove that natural habitat to do other things. But we're forgetting that, for instance, this tree is getting removed. But around that tree, there's probably around 1,000 of organisms that are dependent upon that tree. But we have no idea. How can we value something that we don't even know exists? The guys cutting that tree, they might not have a lot of options in life. It's not a matter of being aware of the problem. When you have to feed your family, humans do what they have to do. But there's an economic driver behind that tree. And that, we participate of that. All of us. Entrepreneurs, business owners. And capital gains are the reason that we make those choices. And we're completely ignoring, and that is the tragedy of the commons. Let's look at our Amazon basin here in Brazil, or on the South American continent. That is one of the most valuable assets on planet Earth. We just don't value it yet, because we don't know how to extract that value from it. The way we do business with the Amazon and the Brazilian Cerrado is based upon economic drivers that bring capital gains. They are more relevant to the capital gains yet to be discovered in those ecosystems. That is the challenge of changing how we do business with nature. The Amazon is the biggest water pump that exists, and solely responsible for irrigating the continent, maintaining agricultural activity, Brazil's main activity. Brazilian GDP is impacted by the rainfall that comes from the ecosystem service of the forests. So it is the biodiversity that pollinize our crops. and also defend our crops from invasive species. And funny enough, not funny, tragically enough, the way we grow food goes in the same way. We clear the soil, we use genetically modified seeds of the same individual is planted over and over again, and we apply synthetic pesticides and fertilizers to keep that productive. By doing that, we are basically stopping the evolutionary process. The Mother Nature took 4.6 billion years to build, and we're believed to be smart enough to simply stop it so we can control it. But we don't. And climate change and the destructions of natural ecosystems are making more difficult to control those variables. We spend $8 trillion every year to that's the number. $8 trillion is lost due to insect invasion. With climate change and the decrease of the natural defenses on the field are only going to make that problem bigger. Insects have they're like little computers. If you increase the temperature, their metabolism increases. It reproduces faster, eats more. And now with warmer temperatures, it reach higher latitudes. So in places that biological invasion weren't a problem, but well, likely it will be. We know the challenges. We have a growing population, decreasing resilience of our ecosystems. And if we don't change the way we currently transact with the environment, that problem is going to get bigger and more difficult to be resolved. The future generations are going to have to deal with a different planet. But I ask you, as an entrepreneur or a business owner, why aren't we thinking about this problem now? Most of us here have planned or have a family already. Are we passing that problem on to our children? Or expecting technology to resolve Mother Nature's 4.6 billion years of a complex evolution? I'm very comfortable predicting that technology will not solve those problems. It will enable us to change the way we are capable of changing things ourselves. Changing the way we transact. The business models that we are multiplying through the various activities. And it's all about timing. It's not about technology, nor business models. It's watching the clock. We're watching the problem space. We're watching the science and innovation space. And it comes to personal motivation to use that moment to make a choice. We respond to business transactions. That's how we change the way we do things. It's not through charity. It's not through understanding the problem. Those parameters were great to create consensus. But it's up to each and one of us to propose a new model and to invest our time towards making those models reality. Business as usual is the biggest risk. Not just for our generation, but for the future generations. Let's dive into the technologies that are enabling us to look at ecosystems in a different way. Satellite technology and remote sensing is the way we observe the planet. So since the 1960s, we've been deploying satellites through the Landsat constellation with the very first and legacy that's still up there. And the science consists on measuring electromagnetic energy reflected from the planet Earth. And we can see it's very relevant for material sciences because we can basically identify different materials through their spectral signatures or electromagnetic signatures. Humans are almost blind. We can see a very, very narrow portion of the electromagnetic reflectance. But sensors can go through a much wider range. And science has developed those sensors firstly for the satellites, and then they become smaller and they can fit in an airplane, and they become more accurate, more precise. Higher spatial resolution, which is the pixel size, spectral resolution going through the electromagnetic spectrum, and now we're able to identify things a lot better. This is an example of the Carnegie Observatory. It's an airplane equipped with a hyperspectral camera and LiDAR, which is laser, and it's mapping ecosystems for the first time at this resolution. So the Amazon is not a single ecosystem. It's a combination of very complex communities. And we've been treating the Amazon on the conservation side as a carbon stock. It's so important for the climate, it's so important for the carbon that it stores. But now we're able to look at the Amazon and other ecosystems and look at the individual trees on that ecosystem. Using the hyperspectral technology, it's possible to identify the precise biochemical signature of each of those individuals. And that changes a lot. Now I have an inventory of what's on that ecosystem. And that changes the possibilities of what I can do with it. So it's a lot more than just a carbon stock. Let's compare the forest to a house. We value a house for the various things that it means, for the space, the quality, for the location. We don't do the same for the forest. By identifying the individual and what it means and what it does and what it can produce, it's at a different evaluation. We don't value a house for its bricks, for its cement, but that's how we value the forest today. And we can change that. Now those hyperspectral cameras are able to be placed in a drone. Drones don't have great autonomy, but for a single property owner, it's possible to survey your entire property, not having to spend millions of dollars in an aircraft. Those assets are high-priced commodities. Cacao, for instance, who doesn't like chocolate? It follows the economic development trends. So we'll need a lot more cacao than we have today. Kumaru, anjiroba, acai, and it goes on and on. These commodities are not been present in a strong way in our economy because they've been extracted in a very decentralized and organized fashion. Being able to map the forest, we're bringing the concept of natural capital. And we're able now to plan how these commodities could scale globally without destroying the forest. So instead of the forest being an offset, it becomes an onset, a profitable onset. So destroying the forest might not be a good business decision if you know that the forest is also responsible for maintaining agriculture in place. But we're losing the forest at a very fast rate. But that doesn't change the fact that we still have 3 million square kilometers of it. We have time. Slides is stuck. Okay. And you ask me, okay, who's going to do that at scale? It's a very isolated place. But we still have 25 million people. People are already in the Amazon. So what's missing? The people are not connected. They're isolated, and they can only do so much. So all these activities at a very small scale. With the advancement of technology, for instance, drones that can survey driving me crazy, this thing. Drones powered by hydrogen energy. This is a reality. It's already functional. It's not at scale, it's not on the shelf, but it will be soon. Those drones can survey the forest, transport small objects. By next year, that will be on the market. Let's think about generating energy and free energy. Solar farms able to produce hydrogen from the rainwater on demand. Fueling around, drones flying around. You don't need to build roads or use rivers. You could have basically Uber Eats from the Amazon to São Paulo, delivering products from the forest. SpaceX is bringing connectivity. By 2024, the Starlink project will put 1,200,000 satellites in orbit. They will give those guys connectivity. So small businesses will be able to connect to the world, wherever they are in the Amazon basin. You and I is a social network created by the cineast André Vilela, a brilliant initiative that's connecting the people on the forest through a dedicated social network that doesn't filter out based on those algorithms that sometimes don't represent well the best interest of the commons and the people. Not to mention that the social media that we circulate and the mainstream of social media are basically algorithms that prevail tragedy and things that not necessarily bring an inspiring ecosystem. Drones are able to transport people are already out there. Why not transporting goods at scale? So the problems of not producing or not having ecosystems to become part of our productive system have been resolved. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of entrepreneurs seeing through those optics and starting initiatives that can accelerate this process. That decision we can make. One single individual can start this process. What about the cultural heritage and the knowledge accumulated for thousands of years, for all the nations that evolved with the Amazon? We know very little about them because they're not valuable to us. I want to bring a little reflection about what we do and how we see what is right under our nose here in Brazil. So the video can go on, please. Video. Tá complicado aqui. Trouble with the IV. Click. There you go. Thank you.
If you are what you eat, what you drink, if you are what you know, what you stand for, and what you believe in. If you are what you spend, use, consume, what you breathe. If everything you are is being threatened, then who are you?
That's a good question, isn't it? Who are you? What decisions have you made with your business? What do you care about? We're powerful enough to create amazing things if we decide to. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to join the Global Solutions Program in 2017 with 90 people from 42 different countries and one goal: to watch the clock of technology and the biggest problems in our world and find that sync that could lead into transformation. And it's amazing when you put people that care in the same way about the same things. During this process, we found the people that were mission aligned and with the right skills to bring that transformation into reality. I have here Zachary Layden and my friend Diego Barcelos, and we created a company with the purpose of transforming business with nature. That even sounds cheesy, doesn't it? Transforming business with nature. Sounds like a great marketing tagline. But it's true. This is exactly what we're doing. And we are getting there. We have created species identification and discovery technology from various levels. But we started from an existing market, an existing pain point. You can't create scalable businesses out of the ether. Our first target was to quantify biodiversity in a very affordable and decentralized way. So by leveraging IoT devices built with open source hardware such as Raspberry Pis, things that already been demonetized and they're abundant at scale. We developed algorithms able to detect insects through sound and image. And remember, we talked about the size of the problem of insects on our food production. It's the biggest competitor for food. Resolving biological invasion or addressing biological invasion, it is an innovation, perhaps a disruption, if we use that to prevent, to counteract the use of pesticides. We're disrupting the pesticide industry. But that's not the goal. The goal is to allow a new concept to arise. How do we quantify and value ecosystem services? Right now they are worthless to us because they are free. But if we measure biodiversity, we will understand what it takes and what's needed, what species and what quantity and what distribution to allow us to continue to produce food. Plant diseases are tightly correlated to biodiversity. We have now the canker, it's been 16 years since the canker has poisoned all the orange trees in Florida. We have a critical problem happening with bananas right now. Red yeast, witch broom with cacao, and it goes on and on. That's the result from trying to stop evolution. Because when we continue to genetic modify these organisms, or we spray them with pesticides, they don't stop their evolutionary process because we want them to. The ones that survive, adapt, and change. But we are not measuring that either. It's too expensive to do it. Well, now we are combining interests, and we're creating a product that may have a new place in the market. It's creating a new market. Precision biodynamics. Bioverse is betting on our existing need of growing food to do that in a different way. Why not leverage biodiversity and Mother Nature's ingenuity in a precise way to grow food without poisoning and destroying ecosystems? Biodynamic agriculture already exists and is extremely powerful. We saw this morning details about Native, the sugar producer from Leontino Balbo. A fantastic use case of large-scale sugarcane production using biodynamic agriculture systems. Here's an example of the algorithms inside the sensor and how we identify the species in real time. A ver? Video? Video. There you go. This is the spotted lanternfly. It threats the American agriculture production at different light stage. The fall armyworm, it's already 4 months ago has landed in India. Those insects, those two that we saw first, are able to create crop loss from 70 to 90%. At scale, those individuals can wipe out crops almost completely. By deploying sensors like that, we're able to predict and prevent famine in certain countries where food security is not as resilient as others. But let's talk about the genetic information laying those ecosystems. And in the field, we know even more. We know even less about the genetic diversity of our planet. But the advancements in biotechnology, the possibilities, are many. We have another entity that spun off Bioverse Labs called Bioverse Foundation that is looking to bridge the gap of knowledge through genotyping. But that problem also starts with the question, how do we move an economy in order to do that? It costs a lot of money to prospect, sequence, do lab tests. What if we could leverage the entire planet to do that? What if we could break the bottleneck and scale genetic prospecting so we can learn about life before it disappears? And especially in ecosystems such as the Atlantic rainforest, right here in São Paulo, we have less than 5%. And that is judging the entire Atlantic rainforest as one, which you know it's not true. So basically, we already lost millions and millions of species that evolved for so many years, holding technology and knowledge that yet never gonna be known. Something has happened with that slide. But the idea here is that we proactively will sequence individuals. Could it be a tree? Could it be a part of soil microbiology? And that genome, by law, belongs to the government at a percentage according to biodiversity law. But what if we could assign that ownership to the ecosystem itself as a shareholder What if we could do that in an indigenous territory and assign a share to the indigenous community? What if we could attract an investor to fund that and provide the investor shareholding rights? Oh, here it is. Now let's think about securing that information. We use blockchain and smart contracts amongst the parties, the owners. We secure how this information is accessed, who gets access to it, and what the terms of the commercialization of that, potential commercialization of that genome with the industry. If it's profitable, all the investors and stakeholders will receive the profits or the capital gains. Scaling genetic prospecting is something that's needed and it's urgent. Digitizing environmental DNA is possible at scale and at low cost. The next 5 years, it's predicted that genetic sequencing, whole genome, is going to be costing less than $1, if not a few pennies. Every time we flush the toilet, we might be sequencing our own DNA and understanding and looking at our microbiome and understanding very complex things about our bodies. But the future is now. We have these technologies that we could assist governments to kick off these processes. And we have strong enough of a business community that will be interested in investing in this. Opening this genome to the world, for the small shop, the research shop, to discover applications, to query this data, using quantum computing, for instance, or to serving this data with the concept of genome web services. We're familiar with that concept when we use our Google Cloud or Amazon Web Services. That way we can scale the innovation as well and empower our biotechnology industries that are already scaling up. And the royalties or the shares, capital gains that are coming from those, the genetic prospecting can create means for these two guys to not to have to chop that tree down. Perhaps they can have a better opportunity in life and engage in a different activity, maybe a sustainable one. But the goal and the challenge is how we change the way we do business with those ecosystems. Creating a circular economy is one way to do massive transformation. Let's think about an eDNA stock exchange. It works for companies. Why couldn't we do it for genome? Brazil would be a very significant player on that. But that's just one step towards understanding better our biosphere. Decoding evolution will unleash a completely new series of technologies, and the pace of change will change again. We can call that the fifth industrial revolution, but I think it's bigger than that. If we find a way to change how we do business with nature and start tapping into Mother Nature's ingenuity, we will be creating something bigger than an industrial revolution. We will be creating the first industrial evolution. And it won't be only digital. It's sure to be biological. And it's right here. Thank you for your time.